The Mojave Desert, a 50,000-mile chunk of hostile, arid terrain with 10,000-foot mountains and temperatures that range from 15 to 134 degrees. Seismically active and prone to earthquakes, it receives on average less than 2 inches of rain per year, making it one of the harshest climates on the planet. Nestled within her fiery foothills lies Las Vegas, Sin City, the entertainment capital of the world, a city that gave birth to the Rat Pack, the modern mega resort, and one of the most celebrated races in history. 52 years ago, the Las Vegas Mint Hotel held the inaugural Mint 400 Rally, which not only gave rise to modern off-road endurance racing, it went on to draw top race car drivers, celebrities, and international press from all over the world. For over 5 decades, men and women from every walk of life and every background have met on this desolate and punishing battlefield in one of the longest-running and most prestigious motorsports races on the planet. This year, Mint 400 owners Josh and Matt Martelli have attracted over 500 race teams in a record 83 classes to compete on a newly designed Tony Vanillo racecourse. A 100-mile nightmare of thick silt, crushing stone, jagged cactus, and massive ruts. Most will attempt 4 treacherous laps, making up 400 punishing miles, but less than half of them will finish. The Mint 400 pulls no punches. It is the reigning heavyweight of off-road racing. To win here, your race must be flawless. This is the Great American Off-Road Race. This is the BF Goodrich Tires Mint 400. In the past 5 decades, the Mint has run 32 times. And in those 52 years, the course has changed radically at least 12 times. The first ever Mint 400 rally, held in 1968, ran from downtown Las Vegas to the town of Beatty and back. In 1970, the race was 8 laps on a 42.6-mile course. From 2008 to 2011, the race was held in North Las Vegas until it was purchased by the Martelli brothers and moved to the Ivanpah Valley. The course this year was cut from 133 to almost exactly 100 miles. But instead of 3 laps, most racers would race 4 of the grueling and gut-wrenching ovals. So while much of the course remained similar from previous years, it was anything but the same old thing. A 4th lap would mean a massive recalculation for many teams on fuel and tire strategy, and the updated format meant that almost all classes would end up running in the dusk or dark near the end of their races. Another challenging aspect of an already difficult contest. The rules were simple. Obey all checkpoints and mandatory stops, and stay on the marked course, but drive as fast as your machine and your experience will allow. The team with the fastest time would win their class. As in years past, all classes would start 2 by 2 and be carefully timed, both electronically and manually. This year's Mint was one of the richest in recent history. Every class with 5 or more racers would race for a purse. And some, like the UTV class, were racing for more than $35,000. Dozens of companies were offering contingency prizes for winning on their products. From the vintage racers to the Class 11 warriors, everyone had a shot at taking home some cash. The stage was set for one of the most lucrative and competitive races in the Mint's history. Most professional off-road racers get their start as young kids. Mitch and his father, Mitch Sr., have amassed an impressive list of professional championship wins over the past decade, including multiple Mint 400 victories, King of the Hammers wins, and Baja 1000 championships. The young racer was even tapped by Red Bull to go compete in Dakar earlier this year, where he won multiple stages. For Mitch, the Mint 400 continues to be one of the most important races on his annual calendar.
I got interested in off-road racing basically from my family. My dad did the rock crawling stuff up in Johnson Valley forever and started a lot of those trails and kind of the idea of rock crawling in Johnson Valley back in the day with his friends. Kind of when I grew up, we would always go to the desert and I'd be on dirt bikes, and then eventually, thankfully for my birthday, my parents got me a trophy cart, started racing those. That was the thing that kind of started for kids to be able to get into different types of racing from a young age.
I'm really glad he followed in my footsteps of racing, but he's, of course, far surpassed me now. So now I take notes from him, and it's been a pretty cool ride.
The relationship I have with my parents it's amazing, and I'm super thankful because not everyone has that.
I got to give Stephanie credit. She holds us all together. I mean, big time. There'd be no way to do this without her. We really lucked out as a family, and everybody loves each other and gets along and has fun.
My transition to desert racing, it was something that I didn't know, and that's what excited me the most. I just wanted, a new challenge. Year one, we had some races where we broke. It was all part of a learning curve, pretty much. We spent 1 or 2 years to figure it out as we go, and then eventually be here where we are with the Best in the Desert Championship is pretty cool.
The favorite part of this is him winning and achieving more and more. I, of course, want to beat him, but do I want to see him win? Heck yeah.
So winning the Mint for the first time, was definitely one race I'll remember is like my biggest first desert race win. It's one of the ones where hey, if you can win the Mint 400, then that puts you up here, you're with the big guys. We were able to bring it home in first, but all it really took out there was maybe one flat tire, and that could have caused a second place for us. So that kind of shows what this class is all about now. Knowing that you have a good tire under you that's not going to fail is the name of the game out there, and to be on BFG, you're not going to have that issue.
He doesn't stress. I wish I was like that, but he's opposite of me. Right before he buckles up, he's laughing and joking with his friends, and the second the visor goes down, it's serious, it's on.
2019 was pretty wild for me. Got a lot of wins, King of the Hammers, Mint, and then eventually the 2019 BITD Championship. So shortly before the last race of the season, Red Bull approached me, and to be in the UTVs doing well and get recognized by Red Bull to be a part of their program is a dream come true to me.
I'm glad he got chosen. I think he's going to do very well. He's one of those guys, he doesn't get tired. He can stay focused for 12, 14 hours at a time in a race car. I've seen him do it many times, and he'll get out and I say, "You tired?" And I feel good. And I'm like, how in the world can you feel good right now?
Winning the Mint 400 in 2020 would be huge. Being such a historic race and knowing who's raced it, anybody knows about it and what it means to win it. It's gnarly, and it's definitely one of the biggest races I'm looking at this year to win, and it makes it that much more special to be looking at winning it for a third time.
On the start line for this year's limited race, 24 classes. Nearly 200 racers from more than 25 different states and 12 different countries. Garage builders, sponsored athletes, and even teams competing in their first desert race ever, all mashed together with one common goal: go hard and win.
Right now we're at the legendary Mint 400. We're in Prim, Nevada, and we're about to start the longest desert race that, I don't know, actually it's not even the longest, but it's going to be the most brutal United States desert race I'm doing all year.
2020 Mint 400 here at the starting line, waiting to get started. Everyone's getting a little antsy, getting ready, and I'm excited. It's a new year, a lot of different things compared to the past year, so excited to get it going.
We expect it, this 4-lap race, 420 plus miles. It's going to be a battle. Hopefully everybody can keep it under control the first 2 laps, and we'll turn it into a race, lap 3 and 4. It's going to be a lot of fun.
This year, the Martelli brothers extended the new grid walk tradition to Friday's race. Thousands of race fans on hand were invited onto the starting grid to interact with racers before their start. The national anthem was sung by Jasmine Tabak to honor our great nation. and then the teams hopped back into their cars and lined up to race. Minutes later, the lights went green, and Class 5 racers Dustin Grabowski and Brandon Williams took center stage as the crowd went wild. Dustin edged out in front of Brandon and moved into the lead. Seconds later, 9:13 Brandon Sims took off against 9:03 Elliott Watson, driving for Honda. The two traded lead several times through the first few turns before Sims dashed out front. Then 9:01 Mitch Guthrie took off next to Bernie Gomez. Guthrie got the whole shot and put his experience to work early on. Craig Scanlon and Brett Serapis flew off the start line just behind them, followed a few minutes later by Rick Rabb and Jacob Carver, and then Matt Burrows and Justin Smith. In all, 104 UTVs left the start line. They were followed by Trophy Light, Jeep Speed, 1450, Vintage Racers, and more, many of whom were second or third generation Mint 400 race teams. The final group to start the limited race this year was a new class at the Mint created specifically for both active and retired U.S. service members, called the military class. It was designed to highlight the specialized vehicles of the armed services. Green Berets with the 5th Special Forces Group shot off the start line as the massive crowd cheered. The military racers were also part of a Mint 400 race-a-thon called the Mint 400 Military Challenge, in which 16 teams representing 11 different foundations came together to raise awareness for military veterans. Teams racing for the Marines, Army, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard raised over $100,000 this year, of which 100% went directly to each foundation. Up in the lead pack, 2016 Mint 400 Pro Turbo champion Brandon Sims was in the lead at race mile 9 and was catching and passing the Class 5 cars already. Sims had clean air and was not about to waste such a fantastic starting position. He was right behind the Class 5 and overall leader, Dustin Grabowski. Grabowski, Sims, and Williams all came through chokers at race mile 21 within seconds of each other. Back in the chase pack, Mitch Guthrie had been running strong in 4th overall when suddenly he broke a rear axle and was forced to pull over. Scanlon, Gomez, Carver, Serapis, and 4 additional racers got past Guthrie before he was up and running again. It was a staggering blow for the champion so early in the race, but Mitchie wasn't about to give up. Craig Scanlon now found himself in 2nd place, about 2 miles behind Sims. Colton Husted, meanwhile, was running out front in the naturally aspirated class. In Trophy Light, there were already multiple shakeups. David Carey was physically in 1st, but had Dave Taylor right on his bumper. Joe Fritos, meanwhile, had jumped ahead 4 positions into 3rd. In the 1450 truck class, Tyler Davis was out front, followed by Eisenhower and Kevin Thompson. Cole Spires rounded out the top 4, seconds behind the lead pack. Back up in the Pro Turbo class, Brandon Sims hit the Fox Proving Grounds for the first time. Craig Scanlon was still right on his tail. They were followed closely by Jacob Carver, who sat in 3rd. The majority of the UTVs would race 4 100-mile laps, making this year's race one of the most challenging in recent history. As rough and inhospitable as the Mojave can be, it is also a delicate ecosystem. Earlier in the week, a special event took place to honor and preserve the balance between off-road racing and environmental stewardship. Every year for the past 4 years, the Mint 400 has announced its arrival by gathering a hard-working group of dedicated off-road volunteers to remove tons of trash left by illegal dumpers near the racecourse. The collaboration was the brainchild of Republic Services Community Relations Manager Jeremy Walters and Mint 400 owners Matt and Josh Martelli.
We're out here in Jean, Nevada. This is our third annual desert cleanup. It's the Mint 400 Desert Cleanup presented by Republic Services. It's actually the fourth desert cleanup we've done together. We're bringing out a bunch of volunteers from the Vegas Valley 1 week before the actual race festivities begin, and we're gonna do a big desert cleanup. Tremendous amount of volunteers, outpouring of support, and we've removed totally about 142,000 pounds of trash from this very area. The goal of today is to not only clean up the desert, but bring some positive light to the off-road community. There's this general myth that the off-road community is the source of the problem, the source of the trash out here, and that couldn't be farther from the truth. These folks are spending their time on a Saturday to come out, support, and clean up the desert.
Together, with support from the entire Las Vegas off-road community, the group has had a lasting impact on the local Las Vegas ecosystem. This year, 500 volunteers showed up, grabbed gloves and equipment, and spent 5 hours collecting illegally dumped trash from the desert. Republic brought out dumpsters and crushing equipment and helped the team separate trash from recyclable metals. With coordination and support from the Southern Nevada BLM office, the group removed an astonishing 13 tons of garbage and 12 tons of metal, bringing their 4-year total to nearly 200,000 pounds.
So right now we're out here on the north side of the Mint 400 course, picking up garbage, and as you can see behind me, we're gonna haul out about almost 30 tons of trash today.
The off-road community, they're not necessarily the source of the problem, but they're wanting to be the solution to the issue. They come out and when they recreate, they don't want to see trash along the trails. They don't want to see trash in their campsites. So, when they come out with their family and their friends, a lot of these guys, aside from our cleanup day itself, they pick up people's trash that who knows who left it there, and they're the ones that are part of the solution. This event is all about dispelling the myth that the off-road world is the source of the problem, and when in reality, they're nowhere even close to the source of the problem.
This is how you start the Great American Off-Road Race. We're about 3/4 of the way through the desert cleanup, and we want to give a big shout out and thank you to Republic Services for their enduring support, 4th year in a row. Thank you guys so much. And to every one of the volunteers that came out today and donated your time, thank you. We couldn't do this without you.
This annual event has become the perfect way to start the race week, and this year, it was featured on a special Discovery Channel program dedicated to similar cleanup efforts globally. Off-road racing is a multi-generational family industry built on healthy competition, and all that starts with the kids. Children as young as 4 and 5 years old often get their start on tiny motorcycles and mini UTVs. This year, the Mint 400 staff wanted the Groms to get their shot at competing on the world's biggest off-road stage. So they created the Mini Mint 400. On Friday, nearly 50 kids in 4 classes lined up and went door to door on a custom-built youth UTV track in front of a massive crowd. In the 170 class, 21 kids battled for 30 minutes, and in the end, Chase Mankin edged out George Yamosis by 6 seconds to take the win. Then in the Youth 250 class, Chaden Minder and Chase Carr both drove hard. Chase would land on top of the box. In the 570 class, Brody Aikens, Johnny Colchura, and TJ Sewers all raced to the front of the pack. But it was TJ who took home the gold. And finally, in the Youth 1000 class, 3-time UTV world champion Dallas Gonzalez went door to door with 8 other daredevil kids, including Mickey Kelly, Cadence Cowan, and Jacob Peter. Dallas took home the win by a mere second as the crowd cheered. Here's a look at all the Youth UTV race results. Congratulations to all the nearly 100 youth racers who came to participate in the first annual Mini Mint 400, and to their parents and families who dedicated countless hours for travel and practice. The Mini Mint 400 was a resounding success, and it will be back in 2021. It's the end of lap 1. In the Pro Turbo class, Mitch Guthrie came into pit A and pulled over. His team furiously attacked his car and worked to get him back out on course quickly. Unfortunately, the team lost another 3 positions. He sat in 12th. The naturally aspirated UTV class hit the Fox Proving Grounds, and it was number 1938 Husted out front still. He was followed by 1957 Joe and Austin Bolton 2 minutes later. Meanwhile, 35-year-old Adrian Oriana, racing for Assault Industries out of Thousand Oaks, California, had started in 7th and had already moved up to 3rd physically. He was only a few minutes behind Bolton and leading the class on corrected time. In the Pro Turbo lead pack, Sims was still cruising out front near the shooting range. He was 2 miles ahead of Craig Scanlon and 3 miles ahead of 3rd place Jacob Carver. Further back, Brett Serapis now sat in 4th ahead of Justin Smith, and Bernie Gomez was being attacked by Matt Burrows. The Lap 1 racing was starting to heat up. Back in the NA class, number 1957 Joe Bolton had moved out front and was running strong, with Oriana less than a mile off his bumper. But 1971 Robbie Gordon had suddenly emerged out of the dust with his son Max co-driving. Gordon had started 11th off the line and on corrected time was leading the class. In the 1450 class, Chris Eisenhower was still out front as he headed into the Fox Proving Grounds. He passed Chris Edwards, who was running 2nd in Class 1100. Kevin Thompson, meanwhile, was charging hard after Eisenhower and making up time fast. In the Pro Unlimited UTV class, Travis Zollinger came through ahead of Eric Phillips. Eric was 2 minutes ahead of Jeremiah Drew, who sat in 3rd so far. Jake Gaughan came skipping through the proving grounds next in his South Point Casino 1/2 1600 car. He was a mile ahead of 2nd place Jay Reichert. 918 Eric Reynolds led the 32 rally class racers at race mile 21. The rally class is designed to be an affordable entry-level option that novice racers can participate in. 901 Jack Olagus finished 3rd in the rally class in 2019 and was looking strong early on this year. Tommy Croft was looking good in his Tomahawk Chenoweth vintage car, and Chad Hall was running strong in Class 12 in his full-size Chevy. Meanwhile, Danny Navoa was driving hard in the military class. In the Pro Turbo Chase Pack near race mile 67, Justin Smith got around Brett Serapis and moved into 4th. And poor Sean Lynch was backtracking to Pit A after damaging his car beyond repair in the Fox Proving Grounds, one of many victims in the race already. Near race mile 76, Craig Scanlon was forced to pull over with a left rear flat, and Jacob Carver got past him to move into 2nd place. Smith and Burrows would advance as well, pushing Scanlon back to 5th. Then the 1450s hit the quarry, and it was still Eisenhower, Thompson, and Spires, 1, 2, and 3. In the Pro Unlimited UTV class, Travis Zollinger came through ahead of Eric Phillips still. Near the end of lap 1, number 913 Brandon Sims still had a commanding lead over his class and the entire field. Could the former Mint 400 and UTV World Champion take another Mint win? Jacob Carver remained in 2nd place and had settled into a groove. He sat in the pocket within striking distance of Sims and Justin Smith and was now running 3rd on course. Meanwhile, back in the mid-pack, Dustin Jones, who had started nearly dead last in his class, suddenly appeared on the scoreboard in the top 10 on corrected time. Jones won the Mint 400 in 2015 and was a constant threat for the overall win. Having him suddenly in play was a game changer. At race mile 46, Eisenhower was still out front in the 1450 pack, but Kevin Thompson was right on his bumper. Spires came through 3 minutes later, followed by Tyler Davis in his Chevy-powered truck. Sims, Carver, and Smith all came rolling into the main pit, one after another. Meanwhile, number 8080 David Kleinman was running strong out front in Open Sportsman. And back in Class 11, number 5121 Jose Ventura was battling with 5106 Mauro Diaz for 4th place. Danny Nova came through minutes later, still leading the military class. In the NA UTV class, Bolton was still in 1st place at race mile 89, but Caden Wells had moved into 2nd. He had moved ahead of Oriana and was looking strong. And in the unlimited UTVs, it was Zollinger, followed closely by Herman Johnson and Jeremiah Drew. Lucas Cassidy was leading in the Rally UTV class, as was Don Beaumont in his modern vintage truck. And the Bradfields were crushing it in Vintage Open in their old Ford truck. Tommy Croft was still running strong in vintage as well. The pro UTV racers were through the main pit and back on course, and Brandon Sims was still running hard out front. Sims now had a 6-mile lead over Carver and Smith, who were still within striking distance. Mitch Guthrie, meanwhile, had quietly climbed his way back to 6th place. And Dustin Jones, who started nearly dead last, was now in 12th place physically and in the top 5 on corrected time. For the next 45 minutes, Sims continued to lead on lap 2, with Jacob Carver in 2nd and Justin Smith in 3rd physically. Matt Burrows remained in 4th on course, and Mitch Guthrie moved into 5th after passing a car in Pit A. Meanwhile, Aspen Chernos was getting a little lesson at the Fox Proving Grounds about strapping down gear. He was in for a long race. In the NA class, Robbie Gordon had moved out front with his son Max in their Speed side-by-side UTV. Oriana was still in the mix, though. He was working past some lap traffic. Caden Wells was in 3rd behind Oriana. Up ahead, Sims was at race mile 59 as the sun began to dip lower in the sky. The Mint 400 is a complicated race, even with good light, and very challenging with the setting sun right in your eyes. But it's an absolute nightmare in the dark. At race mile 21, Eisenhower remained out front in 1450. He was ahead of Spires, who had moved into 2nd ahead of Kevin Thompson. Up ahead at the dry lake bed known as Rockets, Mitch Guthrie now sat in 4th place physically. It was a remarkable comeback for having dropped back to 12th early on. Meanwhile, in the NA class, the Gordons were still charging hard out front ahead of Oriana. It was Eisenhower, Spires, and Thompson in 1450 minutes later, followed by Zollinger, Phillips, and Velasquez in unlimited UTV. Minutes later, C.J. Cromwell took a tumble at the entrance of the Fox Proving Grounds. The margin of error for staying on top of the whoops or becoming a victim of them was razor thin this year. Luckily, no one was hurt in the tumble. Meanwhile, Scanlon ripped past Gomez near race mile 59 and moved into 8th physically in the Pro Turbo class. Gordon, Wells, and Oriana were all neck and neck in the NA class through race mile 46. Meanwhile, Sims, Carver, and Smith passed race mile 89 on their way towards the official Mint 400 Prim Valley start-finish line. In the 1450 class, Eisenhower was still leading Spires and Thompson, but they were encountering a lot of dusty lap traffic and running out of daylight fast. Tyler Davis was still in the hunt in 4th. Lucretia Burrier and her co-driver, Miss Mint 400, Emily Dobrinsky, were sitting in the top 10 in unlimited UTV on their 2nd lap. And Cameron Meester was doing a great job in the rally class so far. Up ahead, it was 914 Callaway out front, with 901 Jack Olegas right on his tail. Meanwhile, Joe Fritos was taking control of the trophy light race. 29-year-old Emily Dobrinsky is a Lake Havasu City native and has worked as a medical professional for many years. She fell in love with the sport and culture of off-road racing while hanging out with friends and was eventually tapped to co-drive and navigate with 3-time Mint 400 champion Lucretia Bourrier. After an exhaustive search and interview process, the Mint 400 owners awarded her the title of 2020 Miss Mint 400. Emily will be the first woman in the Mint's 52-year history to be named Miss Mint, and then climb into a race vehicle on race day.
My name's Emily Dobrinsky, 29 years old, born and raised in Lake Havasu City. I currently live in Texas, Fort Worth, but I make it out to all the races that I can. I was brought up watching NASCAR my whole life, actually. My dad was all about that, so we watched that. So I knew a little bit about what racing was like, but then experiencing the desert part of racing blew my mind, because you're not going around a circle. You're going through desert, you're going through whoops. It's like a crazy adventure, and then part of the family that it brings with it. You build a bond with not just your team that you've created, and then you build a relationship with all the other teammates and players and all the other racers that come along. So it's just one big race family. When you get to get in the car and you put the helmet on and you're racing, the energy and the excitement that you get is like something you can't really explain unless you actually get to be in the car, but the thrill of it is awesome. Then you have to communicate with the teams, the pit, the back, just to figure out where we're at or what mile we're at or how to fix what, but I love it. I love everything about it. First time jumping in the car, I was a little nervous, like you're going 60, 70, 80 miles an hour, and you have hard right turns, hard left turns. When I first started coming to the races with Lucretia, Dragonfire was one of her sponsors, and after I got meeting them, they asked me to come along to one of the events to help them out and be a model ambassador for their company. I'd never done it before, so I was like, sure, let's give it a try, and then I ended up falling in love with it, and I instantly became a family with them, and just like instantly became a race family with Lucretia and her family. I loved it, and I've actually been doing it for like 4 or 5 years now with Dragonfire, but with the experience of being a model with that company has allowed me to work with other companies and be a model or an ambassador for a company, and I stick to keep it with off-road because that's where it's at. Knowing that the Mint 400 has been around for many, many years and asked to become Miss Mint, it blew my mind. Like, I am beyond excited and really, really blessed that I get this opportunity. Like, I've done a lot, but this one really, really takes the cake, and I can't wait just to see what it has in store for the whole year. I'm gonna be the first Miss Mint that actually would be racing the Mint, so I was like, yay, that's exciting. Anytime we race is to get on the podium, but I know for sure now that we normally switch out co-drivers and stuff, but this time I'm racing the whole race with Lucretia. So this is actually really exciting for me too. I've never done that with her, so we're gonna make it past that finish line. We are going to go out there and fight. We're not gonna give up. My name is Emily Dobrinsky, and I am Miss Mint 400.
Up ahead, the Pro Turbo race leaders hit the pits. Sims remained out front with a commanding lead. Carver was still in second, but as he pulled into the pit, Smith passed him and did not stop. Guthrie did the same, moving from fourth to third. Guthrie raced after Smith and was right on his bumper through chokers. He finally caught and passed him at race mile 24. Minutes later, Brandon Sims launched through the Fox Proving Grounds a third time. He was still 5 miles ahead of Guthrie, Smith, and Carver, and firing on all cylinders. Guthrie came through the Proving Grounds minutes later, still in second place physically. For the next 4 hours, the entire field of limited racers battled deep into the night. The Pro Turbo Chase Pack changed order many times over. In the end, though, it was former Mint 400 and UTV World Champion Brandon Sims, racing for Factory Polaris out of Prescott, Arizona, who would cross the finish line first. he won the overall limited race and Pro Turbo UTV class.
This one's the big one, right? This is the longest one, the hardest one. It was brutal, everything about it. I'm just glad to be right here where we're at, and I mean, we ran it hard and just kind of went out there and did what we could. We started out front. Fortunately, we got a good draw, you know, and we went from green flag to the checkered flag and didn't get past once.
It was Brandon's second Mint 400 victory, and he finished a remarkable 12 minutes ahead of second place Jacob Carver. In the unlimited UTV class, Travis Zollinger took the win with a time of 9:42, and Adrian Oriana won the naturally aspirated UTV race with a time of 9:47. Young Jack Olegas won the Rally UTV race in 7 hours and 49 minutes. Meanwhile, Kevin Thompson took the win in the 1450 class, alongside class winners Paul Nalau in 1100, Jorge Ventura in Class 11, Joe Fritos in Trophy Light, and Don Beaumont in Modern Vintage, to name a few. Here's a look at all of the winners for the 2020 BFGoodrich Tires Mint 400 Limited Race. While the winning race teams celebrated, there were still dozens of vehicles on the racecourse who would battle late into the night. Honorable mentions go to the teams of Josh Koscheck and Ryan O'Hara, who both battled for over 13 grueling hours to finish their races. And to Robert Blanton in the military class, who put in over 12 hours to finish second in his class. The spirit of off-road racing and never quit attitude are what sustain the sport and make it special. Just finishing the Mint is an incredible accomplishment, and this year was by far one of the most difficult on record. Of the 500-plus race teams that left the start line, only 47% finished the grueling marathon. Also out on the course, keeping a watchful eye on the race teams, was a legion of volunteer course workers and the safety professionals at Motorsports Safety Solutions. A special thanks to all who volunteered their time marshaling and operating the race this year. The Great American Off-Road Race will return to Las Vegas March 3rd through 7th in 2021. Visit themint400.com or facebook.com/themint400 for complete details.